I put some charts in chat talking about like delinquencies and like bankruptcies. So you can see, but
Sure.
like well, in Discord and in DGG, but the transition into
Which,
like
sorry, which, just so I can see it, like which
Destiny
channel?
room chat, the side chat.
Oh, side chat. Okay.
The only things that have actually gone up to levels where you can make like you could like say, oh, this is bad, is like the single delinquencies on like auto loans and stuff like that. I believe it's also on credit card as well, because these are extremely volatile things. And if you have
I can't
any
actually
move in like
see side chat, so I'll just take what you're saying, but I can't see it, so
wait,
it's
what?
fine.
Who cares? Just
I don't have.
explain it. Explain it. Metal, use your words. You got it. Go.
Okay, so essentially, delinquencies for people that are young, because that's what you're going to focus on, right? And people that are so like below the age of 40, they have moved up to around like just a bit above the average of like the 2010 to 2020 period. If you go by overall transition to delinquency by age, it's below the 2010 to 2020 period. So we are way better than that. There is no shine in like the consumers are like facing massive hardship. If you go by bankruptcies, it's incredibly lower compared to 2010 2020 period. Keep in mind that the 2009 and 2001 is a massive spike. We're way lower than that.
Yeah, but what about before, what about like right before those? Like I understand going through those.
It was much higher before as well. Much higher.
What was it like comparison wise? And also, I think it's important to know the younger consumer is very important, because the older consumers are just not very good consumers in some ways, right?
Well, no, they are. They're 80% to 70 to 80% of all consumption. So all consumption that like conforms into GDP is done by 70 percentile and up, like income earners. It's not done by
sure. I agree with that.
Then why would you say that old people aren't? They are massive spenders. They
did you say old people or?
Yeah, old people are very big spenders.
Yeah,
Stop. What are your old people definitions? I don't know. I think you guys might be operating off two different definitions of old people.
Well, I initially gave the like 40 below when I was talking about delinquency, so I'm guessing you're meaning like 50 and above.
Yeah.
Yeah, 50 and above are massive
I don't think old people, I guess, do we know like what percent in 2008 of old people were delinquent? Like I don't know if we
see that.
Yeah, I can't see it, but how is that, I guess, in comparison? Was old people delinquencies a real problem in 2008 as well, or was it more still like the younger consumer or the more risky ones in general?
If you look at these charts, like basically I look in general, like if you see them, basically what will happen is the younger, like the reflexivity of someone, it goes up depending on the age. So like a younger person will go to a higher degree than the lower persons because they have a lower cushion, but everyone will go up. Right, and what you see now is everyone is lower than like the 2010 2020 period, right? In bankruptcies and in total delinquencies.
I feel like without getting too deep into this, Metalloid, I feel like does this kind of stuff matter? That like, I feel like housing stuff would push. These up. Oh, sure, okay, but I feel like housing stuff would push like bankruptcy so much more than like other consumer spending problems.
No, I agree 100%.
Like, yeah, okay.
I'm approaching this from like what he's brought up because I can't come from an angle because then he'll just say, well, what about the things I said, right? And then
Well, I want to learn. So if I'm wrong, tell me how I'm wrong in some ways.
Well, yeah, but I'm not trying to treat you like a child, right? I'm trying to like go through what you said.
Jesus, okay.
My biggest some of the things I'm thinking about too, like if housing doesn't come back up in value, if you have loans and collateralized by your house as well, there's some risks there, no?
So like risks everywhere. Yes. It's about the magnitude, though. Where, like,
in Canada, for example, I know HELOCs were a big deal, right? And
sure, but that shouldn't matter unless your housing prices actually fall. But even if it falls a little bit, it shouldn't impact you that much unless you're here. Even if it falls kind of significantly, it depends on what you mean by like 5 to 10% should be significant. But if you're literally HELOCing out 100% of the equity,
from here we dropped 20% and we still haven't come back in 3 years now.
Okay.
For example,
if you've got a lot of people that have HELOCed out that much equity,
we had a lot of HELOC.
I don't know. There's no shot. Is it really that common in Canada?
Yeah, for sure.
What percentage?
There was a lot of.
Hold on, wait. I haven't looked this up. I haven't looked this up, and I'm just pulling this number on my ass. I would be surprised if it was like, do more than like 10 to 15% of homeowners have HELOCs?
I doubt that. No.
Oh, okay. All right.
Well, I imagine. Okay, here's the thing. I imagine first off, a lot of people just own their homes here. Like boomers have been owning their homes for a very long time. But I think there's a section of homeowner that definitely overextended in terms of leveraging mortgage products in general when house prices were low and interest rates were low. Or sorry, house prices were high and interest rates were low.
Okay.
And then when interest rates come back up, those people in particular are at risk and have always been at risk. And those people are the ones that are going delinquent now. But I don't think we need a lot of delinquencies for banks to feel pressure, especially in times of like turmoil. So part of my thesis too is, for example, if you scare seniors and they feel like they need to take their retirements out of their assets, then that can put a lot of pressure on banks.
I don't know. Is that a thing that happens? I feel like you'd have to have a lot of shit going wrong for them to be getting that kind of financial advice. But maybe I don't know how. I just don't know the answer to that.
I think in Canada, in particular, I think the messaging is very interesting. Like, for example, people who visit the U.S. for longer than 30 days need to register. And there's a lot of Canadian homeowners in Florida, for example, which we see prices crashing in. Like, I think scaring the Canadian retiree is actually a very interesting strategy in some ways.
Sure.
And a lot of
Canadian
the way
thing is
Trump's
absolutely fucking retarded, by the way. But yeah.
Jesus. What do you mean? Like the registration thing?
Yeah, my girlfriend is from Canada. It's I don't know if there's going to be like difficulty like getting her into the fucking country. Like she's a terrorist.
Yeah.
Like I don't know why you do this with Canada. It's just fucking retarded.
Exactly. But that's why I think it's very interesting that if you scare Canadian retirees, they're either going to pull their assets out of the U.S. or they might, you might spook them in ways that I think can impact banks in a lot of ways.
Maybe that would be another thing, though. I would be surprised if like more than 1% of homes in the U.S. were owned by Canadians.
I think. Not necessarily even saying it in that regard, but I'm just saying in general, like if Canadian home or old Canadian people are worried about, say, war or, not being able to travel, or maybe their assets are going to be frozen in the US or whatever, just spook them in some ways. It doesn't take much if banks are already struggling in some ways. So I'm curious.
You think banks are struggling?
Some banks, I think, are struggling more than others. Like we see CEO changes and branches being closed like motherfuckers. A TD Bank, for example, and specifically, I think is in trouble in some ways.
Oh, are you talking about Canadian banks?
Yes. But I think that's why it's very interesting, and just in general in the messaging. Like if a Canadian bank pops or falls apart, I think that is a very big sign for the entire economy, especially in Canada. But we're so interconnected now that if we, for example, Canada, have serious problems in our banking system, I think that would raise major red flags on growth narratives in general.
True.
Maybe I will say it would not like permanently destroy everything, but as soon as we see some cracks, I think it can move very quickly.
Maybe I will say two weird things. One is on a small thing. I don't know why you guys do this, but in Canada, arms are still really common for home mortgages over there, which is weird to me. But then also maybe this makes more sense to the second thing, and I don't understand the second thing. The way that you guys do your interest rates or whatever is a lot different than in the United States as well, right? Like Canada was like uniquely protected somehow.
We do not have. So we don't have 30-year mortgages.
No, not just that, but I'm saying like the way that you're banking somehow I think is different because you guys were insulated a lot from the 2007, 2008 stuff. Yeah.
It's because we did stress tests, and we also have gross debt servicing issue or requirements. So you cannot have certain debt ratios before entering into your mortgage. Yeah. So we're in general less risky. We have less risky mortgages in general. But we also had very high valuations in housing. So, if we stress tested people to say 2 or 3% above their current interest rates, that's cool. But there's a lot of assumptions in that, stress test. Like if I lose my job, for example, but I'm stress tested and approved for a certain mortgage, it doesn't mean anything anymore, right?
Yeah, sure. Although I think in Canada, I think you guys want your housing prices to come down significantly too, though, right?
We would like them to, but that does put the banks in a bad spot in some ways, especially if people lose their jobs.
Yeah, I guess you're not well. Either way.
Yeah. So like I'm
in America or Canada?
No. Like I think the thing is, yes. Sorry, I'm not trying to jump around, but I'm from Canada. But I think the big thing is if we see dominoes, it can go real quick. And so far, I've seen quite a few international dominoes that should already be quite concerning.
Okay, so the key points when you're addressing a recession are whether or not what type of recession, what economy you're in. So economies have cycles, blah, blah, blah. Like the way it basically works is you have a credit economy, or you have an income economy. Right now, we are in a income-driven economy, which means that incomes are going up to then produce more consumption, which then produces demand, etc. Credit economy is the same thing, but it's usually driven by credit demand. So big way you can see this, an easy way you can see this, is debt issued by banks is nowhere near like the type of thing you'd see in like a credit economy. It's barely gone up since like COVID compared to like 2010, 2020 or 2000 to 2009. Any sort of cycle, it's barely gone up at all. But what we have seen gone up a lot is wages and consumption, right? Real and nominal consumption by consumers. So right now, what everyone should be focusing on is the consumer, right? Because that's what
Yeah.
matters. They are the one driving the economy, and what matters for that is wage increases and the sensitivity of the consumer. The sensitivity of the consumer is driven by a bunch of things. It could be asset prices. It could be sentiment. It could be job losses. It could be all of those things, right? And then you have to basically, look at the magnitude of the things that are affecting those sensitivities. So you brought up like delinquencies. I said that those don't really matter. They're basically like post hoc like indicators. So when you ever have a recession or a slowdown, they will follow, but they are not indicators for thing happening. Okay, they
Okay,
aren't.
cool.
Oh, it's
I agree
happening,
with this.
so we can be scared. It's just it
No,
happens
no, no. I agree
alongside
with
it,
that.
right?
But so what I'm curious about is if we see these like cracks or little bits of, and maybe you disagree that they're cracks, but we see some
Definitely
signs of
cracks.
struggle. We see some signs of struggle right now, right? If we're going to push forward aggressively with tariff policies, which it definitely appears we will, and we already have with some, like regardless of if we pursue the next wave or not, we've definitely already pursued enough that I think there's going to be some serious strain. Are we not just going to see more and more as these tariffs are
Yeah, but
fully
what you're
priced in, their
conflating
impacts? Yeah.
what you're conflating is a recession with just like a growth slowdown. So, for example, in 2019, when the tariffs initially got done and the interest rates were going up, and then they cut interest rates, or they stopped increasing interest rates, and they also stopped doing QT. Is we had a slowdown, right? America went from whatever GDP was, I forgot, to basically lower, right? Because
Mm.
you had capital. The big thing that happens whenever you increase uncertainty and trade, especially trade uncertainty, is capex goes down, or capital expenditures from companies, right? And that
Mhm.
reduces labor supply, and it labor demand, and it also decreases wages because whenever you're making more, you have a less inelastic demand on labor, which means people get paid more. So if you're having less capex, it means less people are getting employed for that, which means less spending, right? That's important.
Mhm.
But it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to go into a recession. To have a recession, you need a feedback loop, right? And a
Right,
feedback loop
right.
usually comes from a bubble blowing up or assets going down. Assets have
Right,
massive,
right.
massive, massive importance on
Right.
spending.
Okay, so if we get some pressure, like, okay, so we already see cracks and we start getting pressure on jobs, for example. Do we not see that maybe a domino effect in the downward position or trajectory into a recession? Like, would that not potentially cause a cascading effect into a recession?
Oh,
If we're
that's another
already
thing as
seeing
well.
cracks and we're seeing like major shifts in tariffs, I imagine a bunch of companies are going to say, well, if we don't have end consumers yet, or if we're not 100% sure because consumer confidence is down, why are we going to employ all these people and build a bunch of shit that may or may not be consumed? Like, should we slow down? Like, are we going to do a bunch of infrastructure build outs right now when we're not even sure if the tariffs are going to go in or not? Like, I feel like we're putting everyone in a weird spot where we have to wait and see, and that does not seem like a good spot for employment first, but also future employment when tariffs do or do not come through, right?
Right, but what you're conflating again is the idea that these tariffs are going to cause that feedback loop in like to recession, right? Like it will probably cause, and already maybe has a slowdown, but that doesn't show in the data anywhere whatsoever yet.
Well,
Like
we haven't gotten there yet. We
well,
can't.
no. There are like the consumer sentiment, for example. There is like
Mm.
credit card, like there that you can basically track. There's lots of like things that aren't like in the baseline stuff. But if you're just going by the baseline stuff that the government releases, right? Job growth has been good,
You
right?
believe that,
Yep.
idiot?
And there's also been good spending from consumers. Like, I mean, retail sales are flat. That's not really that good, but I mean, that's not down. That's
This
that's a
is
slowing
before
growth.
anything bad happens, though, right? Really, this is before the job losses are felt and all the tariff
Well, you're
impacts
saying
are
job
actually going
losses, but
through.
where are those going to come from?
Well, we're definitely going to come from at least manufacturing in some ways, especially ones that are hit by tariffs, like vehicle manufacturing. We have no idea what's going to happen here. I just don't
How do
like.
you? Well, the biggest thing with vehicle
Canadian
manufacturing is the like Mexico and Canada tariffs, right?
Canada,
So
yeah.
if you're an auto company, you might stop, like there has already been like Stellantis, they've stopped like a plant expansion, I think, in Canada. But what's to stop them from like keeping all their production in America? Because at the end
Well,
of the day, Canada can go into
I
recession. That might
assume
have effects in America, but if they don't reduce their capacity in America, then it's not going to reduce demand or labor.
I assume that if you have 25% input tariff on some of these products, that the end product being 25% more expensive, just assuming all else equal, somehow it's a perfect 25% increase, that would decrease demand for vehicles quite a lot, no?
I think the big
Well, it
issue
depends
you're
on
running into here is you're
elasticity.
trying to make like when we talk about a recession, are we all agreeing recession is defined as 2/4 of GDP contraction?
Yeah.
No, not
right?
anymore. But
Well, I know. Yeah, okay. Fuck off. Wait, what working definition are you going with?
So if you do that, like technically we had a recession in 2022, but
Sure.
we didn't. The reason is because if you don't have labor, like unemployment go up, then it doesn't really make sense of the recession. Because like if you have like 3% or 3.5% or 4% unemployment, but like GDP goes down 2/4, is that recession? Like,
Okay, sure, I understand.
would be-
We're trying
this is
to.
by the NBER, by the way. The NBER did this.
No,
They have, like,
I know,
four
I know,
main
I know, I know,
factors
I know.
that they
Yeah,
do.
because people got really pain that they changed the way that they define this. Or well, Trumples did, but okay. Fuck, you derailed me. I hope you.
right.
Never mind. Go ahead. Wait, what was I saying?
Like, I think
you were
by the way,
talking about like the way we manage recessions,
Wait,
so
I'm
I
sorry.
imagine
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, I think one of the difficulties that is happening right now is I'm not going to say that recessions are always purely economic. There's always some politics involved in economic policy, obviously, but I think right now we're in like a combination like political world and finance world and like a speculative political world and a speculative finance world. Like we don't know what the tariffs are even going to look like politically. So then we don't know what to count on politically, which then informs us economically. So then you have to speculate politically on how to inform your economic decisions. But then also economically, even without the politics, I don't know if anybody knows what economically the correct choice is either. Like, should you start onshoring all of your production domestically to the United States? Should you just start exporting from other countries and just eat the tariffs? Would it make sense to bring stuff to the United States if other people also do that? Like, would it just be uncompetitive and you just end up like mass closing anyway, like when Starbucks opened too many? Like, I don't know how anybody is trying to even remotely do that calculus right now because it feels impossible.
And also, don't forget, we're not even sure if they're going to go in or not because he keeps teasing it.
That's what I mean about the political uncertainty. Like, that's not even a finance or economics consideration. That's just a finance, or that's just a politics consideration, which it's difficult.
Right.
From the company standpoint, the idea is that you have uncertainty. You just reduce like your places where you're sensitive to that uncertainty. So you're going to reduce capex plans, like I said before, right? You're not going to like potentially make years-long plans based on this because, as you said, they have no idea what's going to happen.
But the problem is that I think the uncertainty that you're talking about, like I think you can sometimes scale back and scale up production, but the uncertainty that Trump is introducing is whether or not you have to do like unbelievably huge capital reallocation or your business is totally non-viable. I think that's probably a pretty unique uncertainty to deal with in a Western country. This is like some shit you would expect in like Somalia or Sudan or something. But the idea that a country that ostensibly is part of the WTO and has trade agreements would just one day say, we're destroying all foreign manufacturing, all our entire imports market, is probably a really weird thing to try to deal with. Like that's a...
It depends though, because like tariffs can be passed on to consumers.
Right? Especially when it's the US.
Sure,
like
yeah.
you said this the other day, where like you think like 50% of tariffs can be passed on consumers, but like basically every single study we say has 100% or like 90%. So if they just it's just a one-time increase, and it doesn't really affect like the company. So for example, the steel stuff was just passed on consumers, right? But the steel companies, like they faced like near-term harm, but it's not going to change their like long-term like manufacturing or expansion plans, right? Because in the end of the day, they're just going to follow where demand is, and if you're going to pass on the cost increase to the consumers, you're not going to change massive like plans like that.
Well, but like what I'm saying is, but the demand, the composition of the market might change significantly because now where you're located is going to be big. Like before, you might be scaling demand, or you might be scaling your supply up and down, or you might be scaling your capital investment in different areas up or down. But now you have to make a unique consideration because a new thing has been presented to where like you have to be building in the United States, right? So in terms of accounting for that, I don't think it's like a simple matter of like, why my demand will go up or down. Now the aspects of the competition have changed a lot, where you're going to be competing with different companies in different ways because demand might be going up for some people, but it might not go up at all for you, right? Because quantity demanded is based on the price that you're supplying a thing at, right? So if the demand for American cars goes up, the demand for a car built in this country will be higher than a demand for a car built out of the country because all else equal, the out-of-country car is going to cost more, right?
No, my point wasn't to say that it will not like. So it might change. It might change a plan you have based on like, for example, if you have a plant that you're currently thinking of building like Mexico, for example, you might stop because the the valuation of like that framework is different now.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is like the end, like a country, like let's say I don't know, I'm going to make something theoretical. Let's say the car market in the US is going up like 50% a year, and they're going up in like 10% a year in like in Mexico. You're more likely to put like a manufacturing plant in America in that case, anyways. So in long term, because these affects the
I'm so sorry.
more long term. Yeah.
Can you repeat that again? Say that again. I think I disagree.
So if you have like like manufacturing plant you want to make, right?
Yeah.
And let's say America is going up 50% a year, like the demand for cars, and then in Canada and Mexico it's like 10%, right? You're going to like this tariff stuff isn't going to like change that because it's a long term like.
Well, I think
long-term like structural market.
Well,
right?
but it would change it because we're not just talking about those domestic markets. We're talking about access to international markets, namely to the United States market, right? So you're not just looking at demand inside. Like it feels like you're fundamentally changing the way that you're viewing the market, in that now you're not going to have access to certain markets that you would otherwise. I'm being kind of.
But it depends how the tariffs, like as I said, if they pass on to the consumers, right? If you like, for example,
I agree. Or wait, I'm sorry. Go ahead. You say that depends on how the tariffs.
Yeah, the idea you're approaching this is that like labor market kind of like it's important. Like for example, they build in Mexico because labor costs are lower, and they do that for like financial reasons, right?
Sure.
But when you have like a tariff that comes in, and basically equalizes it, because if you pass it on to consumers, you don't really have like it's not like a net. It's a net change, but it's a net change that is passed on to consumers. So it's just inflation, right?
Well, yeah,
but margin cost.
But it's going to change the demand for your product if you're passing on that cost to a consumer, and a domestic manufacturer in the United States doesn't have to.
I agree,
yeah.
But the idea is that the companies aren't going to assume trade war like continuing forever.
Well, sure, but I mean, at some point, that might be a thing
they will,
and
that will be a very big moment.
Because if you think
now.
I can just pass the cost on to the consumer, and then the trade war actually happens for a long time, a company that makes an investment in the United States early, that might be it seems like a dumb investment because obviously the manufacturing costs are going to be higher. In the long run, that company might benefit if those tariffs stay forever, and now you've fucked yourself because you can't pass those costs on to the consumer because now your product is not competitive anymore, right? You can't compete on price.
Like the idea that everyone would go with is you just wait, keep capital expenditures lower until like certainty is back, and then basically the assumption is that there will be a trade agreement or something like that, because no one actually thinks that he's going to do trade wars forever.
Well, you say nobody thinks that, but
and no one. No, sorry. When I said nobody thinks that, I said nobody is planning for that. Nobody is like, I'm going to like insource all of my manufacturing to America, because that isn't
It's an insane proposition. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, but like we even saw right with Trudeau, and even I still think it's kind of silly. But maybe not, right? Like that you saw that when Trudeau gave that speech to Canada, like the Trudeau government sincerely began to believe, I think Trump is actually trying to take parts of Canada. And it's even today, it still sounds retarded if you think that, but every single public statement, every single private communication, and every single action the administration is taking are basically, I would say, are acts of war. It's sanctioning and then the explicit overt, it's not a conspiracy. Trump is saying, we want to redraw these borders. We want to take over parts of Canada. Governor Trudeau, he's saying the things publicly. All of his people are saying it privately, and his policies are aimed in that direction. So I was like, well, what the fuck? Yeah. So I don't know when people, but I say this every time that we look at the markets, and you're in chat screaming at me, and then I'm screaming at you, that like, I don't know how much the markets have priced in for any of the political uncertainty, because there's huge economic implications for all of it as well, right?
Yeah, like don't get me wrong, I completely agree with you. In terms of like his administration, like I argue a lot with like his strategy. I mean his like the econ advisors that he is like sucking up to. And
I still don't even. I don't believe those people are real. I still feel like it's just Trump, because I don't know who would even be advising him, or what is your.
The thing is, like when you're approaching this like framework, so you approach a framework where like you have a framework for someone, and it basically guides you in like predicting what they're going to do, right? Like otherwise it has no value, right? Yeah.
Sure. But I have almost no framework. I've said, yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's my thing is I'm willing to change my framework a lot, because it depends on like what I see and what's coming in, right? And I think that from term one, he is in a completely different framework than he was in term two, right? In term one, he had like a bunch of people that half agreed with him, half didn't, but no one was really willing to take his like master plan into existence, right? Stephen Moran is like the founder of like this idea of like reshoring for America, like the guy linked to his paper, and like Besant is going around literally saying that tariffs are necessary to like restructure America. So far, he is following their plan to a T, literally to a T. He is tariffing. The idea is to like pass on like cost to other people, get a tax. It's stupid. It is the most retarded plan ever. But that's their idea, and he is implementing it.
Okay,
right?
This is that 48-page paper that you and that other dude kept linking in my thing, screaming at me to read, right?
I linked it once, to be fair. Okay.
Oh, never mind. Stop it. That's the guy. He just linked it again. Yeah, it's that dude. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So essentially, yeah, their idea is retarded, but he is implementing it, right? And if he believes that he can change the manufacture, like the economic, structure of America,
Mhm.
and also make more taxes in it, lower income taxes, then if he believes what they're telling him, then he's doing exactly what they're telling him. Maybe he is just doing whatever, but so far it doesn't look like that because everything he's doing fits their like Model 30. So
Okay.
I believe they going with it. But obviously, from a company standpoint, it's like politicians are dumb. There was actually a piece by Bloomberg the other day that came out with the automakers. Like insider people were saying basically that the automakers went there. They were like begging him to like give them withdrawals, exemptions and stuff.
Yeah.
And basically he gave up the 1 month. But after that, they realized that he is full on like set on this. Like he is not bucking. Like he is going to keep them
Sounds like
on.
a lot of
But the
job
2nd of April
losses.
things
No?
are coming in.
Would you think that there'd be a lot of job losses if they do actually go ahead with this policy?
No one knows what's going to happen. I mean, obviously,
even a chance though, or
well,
no?
I mean, there's a chance. The hard thing is that there's a chance that there might not be any job losses. There might be job gains, but it might be productivity losses because now the jobs are in worse productivity environments, and there might be losses, but there could be losses because people are making less money, so now they're buying less shit, or they could. But it's hard to. It's almost it's not quite as catastrophic, but it's like, what if the U.S. defaulted on their debt? Like, I don't know. What if we were an autarky? We manufactured everything at home. Like, it's like a weird environment that I don't know who makes real predictions about shit like this because it's so fucking bizarre.
It just feels like we have to like base our predictions on what like
there is
Trump
a
thinks,
very
though,
100% true thing, Leon, that's going to happen, right?
There is a 100%
right.
what?
There is a 100% true thing that's going to happen. The tariffs are going to come in. They will reduce GDP because they will reduce capex.
That has to be the case, almost definitionally. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. They will 100% happen. To the extent and how long, like that, we have no idea. No one knows anything. We don't even know what the 2nd of April tariffs are going to be. If he does it based on that, like I believe there is a very high chance that he does actually send America into recession and EU because if he did 20% tariffs, I mean, but then he could do.
Do you think we're pricing this in
that for a month, right?
Do you feel like we're pricing this in?
Oh no. But.
No, sorry. I'm not trying to cut you off. I'm actually.
No, I know. I'm not. I know you're not. I have to refactor my brain when you're talking about pricing in because no one has any idea how that stuff works.
I just feel like
we're not pricing in that in.
Right.
Wait, what do you mean no one has any idea? Call me out.
When you talk about pricing in,
yeah, go.
No, I didn't mean you specifically, but the idea
bitch.
there's you have a better framework than most people, but the idea is that people think that you like you talked about like acquisition thing. Like there is basically what it is you price in if someone says something, go with believing them at face value, and then what you do is you go based on their past actions whether or not it will actually happen, and that's the differentiator. So like in the acquisition argument you made, you were like, oh, it would go up over time, but in reality what would happen is it would go up like instantly, and then what would happen is it would
I'm so sorry.
the
Pretend I'm retarded. The acquisition thing I'm talking about. What are you referring to?
right?
Wait, I'm so sorry. I'm not trolling you. Your whole thing just cut off. I'm sorry. Could you say that again? I don't know.
So, I know. So there was an acquisition in like 3 months later, and you were like, oh, if you're pricing this in, like over time, the price will go up over time, nearing to the acquisition, and then like when it gets like to the day, it will like go up a lot. That's what you.
When it gets to the day, it will go up a lot. Wait, your thing just cut off again. Are you here?
You had like paint up, and
I had paint up.
I maybe I'm coming at this wrong. If you don't remember, I'll just go with a new whole example. Essentially, you said something along the lines of...
never mind. It has to do with future value representing... current value representing future expectations, and that if you think a thing's going to be worth $10 tomorrow, you're not going to wait to buy it $10 tomorrow. You're going to spend $9 today.
Yes,
or
right,
I understand what you're saying. Yeah, okay, good. I'm sorry. Okay, good. Yeah.
But the difference is, like, what actually happens is, if you have a reasonable certainty of something is going to happen, what you're going to do is you'll price in, like, 80 to 70% of that thing, depending on past actions, right? So for Trump, the tariffs are like, I would say maybe 30 to 50% like market pricing in, and then the other 50% is the discount to the belief that he's going to do it. Like for an acquisition, it would be like 80 to 90%, depending on the company's like balance sheet, their history of like acquisitions and stuff like that, right? So
sure.
When Microsoft was acquiring Activision, the main things were antitrust, right? That was the main reasons why they didn't think it would go through. But it actually did go like 80% to or like 70% to the acquisition price, right? And the 10 to 20% was the discount on, it not going through because of the antitrust rules.
Sure.
So there's like different things that come into play. But most of the time, you're going to price in more than 50%, unless it's Trump.
And then also like when you say pricing things in or whatever, no, never mind. I was gonna say generally because the Trump stuff is all political, the other stuff is kind of financial. But no, if you're thinking about like is the SEC going to block something, that you're also thinking other
it's all political.
not strictly political things. Yeah.
Like the FTC, for example, Lena Khan, whenever people bring up like doing stuff, I always say she did nothing, and she didn't. Like the market, you can actually see this in the way, because when she would constantly bring up stuff about against big tech, and like after the first year, the market didn't give a single shit because her track history was trash, right? She basically got nothing through, so they just stopped believing her.
Sure, makes sense. Okay.
Wait, he's muted.
I'm here. I'm just listening.
Oh yeah, so the tariffs potentially cause a recession, but we don't know the ramifications of them. We know that 100% there will be like even the Fed are going on with the idea that this is going to be a transitory inflation, where it's like an initial cost increase, and then after that it's like back to normal. We don't know if that's going to be a thing, because what we could do is we could have a tariff on them. The EU could tariff like the US, and then it could keep going back and forth, or the EU buckles, like we've seen them kind of doing, because there's like member states that really don't want it, and the member states are, yes, they're pussies. Everyone's saying the EU is strong and unified and retarded.
True. Unfortunately, I want to believe that so much, but I don't think they're anywhere near as united.
So do I. Okay, so do I. It's sad. Even Canada is buckling, and they have like everything to do to not do it. Okay, the reality is
Dougie didn't though. No, he did on something.
No, he did. Dougie did. Yes, Dougie probably got whipped by the premiers in the background because he fucking went out of line.
Ah, fuck.
I have some thoughts on that though. I feel like Trump's reaction to that was very aggressive, because it hits in a very specific place that he can't afford to have it hit.
He knew they were buckle. He knew that Doug was going out on his own. And,
no, hold on. Trump didn't know they were buckle. He just hopes they do, because he's a fucking retard. And Canadians are retarded as well, because we all are American at the end of the day.
I don't think he's a master plan guy. I just know he's like...
We do not all want to be America.
Doug was making a decision from a single state. If he increased aluminium and steel costs across all by another 25%, that would have been incredibly bad.
Well, wait, so my assumption was that his state or his province controlled a disproportionate amount of those resources. Do you think other Canadian provinces could just like step in and take over, or why did Dougie...
No, what I'm saying is Doug was doing a energy charge, right?
Yeah.
Based on the Ontario exports to like the New England area, right? But what Trump came along with was he was going to increase the tariffs on the whole of Canada by 25% again, which is the whole steel and aluminium industry. So eventually, I think what happened was the other premiers came to Doug and he was like, you have to take this off, because we cannot handle another 25%.
Well, first off, I don't think that's how it works. Other premiers are not going to pressure Doug Ford into anything. If anything, it would be our federal government in some ways, you know.
Well, whoever it was, I think he got told that he couldn't do this.
Mark Carney is our new prime minister, who it's interesting because he was actually the governor of the Bank of Canada during 2008, which is fascinating.
Yeah, I've listened to this guy talk, and I'm envious that your leaders seem to actually understand some things about economics.
Actually understands, yeah.
Everyone outside of Trump does.
I have some thoughts and questions on this. So we had something called carbon tax in Canada, and essentially, if you think about it, it's somewhat of a way to control the costs of, like, just our inflationary. Sorry, I'm having trouble explaining it, but if we put in a tax on our citizens that costs them a bunch of money, we actually have the ability to remove that tax when we need to, right, and decrease that cost to our consumers, especially when we're in a recession or in some area where we need to decrease these costs. The U.S. doesn't have anything like that, right? Like,
we don't, but I would say whatever you're talking about is that if you are taxing them somehow, that's coming out somewhere else. So it's not like you can alleviate that pressure for free. Yeah. Something's going to have to pay for it somewhere. Yeah.
Sure.
Also, you do have that in the U.S.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, like that. I mean, you could find these anywhere. Whether it's in the form of actual stimulus checks or tax cuts.
No. I mean, you do have carbon taxes in the U.S. Hardly anyone knows.
He's not talking about carbon taxes per se. What he's saying is that what you could do is you could endure some level of pain in the Canadian economy by alleviating some of these things like carbon taxes. So we could hurt the U.S. without Canadians paying for it at all. But what I'm saying is that carbon tax and the spending from it is going to be taken from somewhere. Sorry, what?
We also have a lot of internal trade barriers with our own provinces that we can alleviate as well.
Yeah, that's really weird. I was surprised when Doug talks about like doing tariffs and shit to the U.S. I didn't know your premiers had so much power. That's way more power than I think our governors have.
Yeah, we have a lot more power in our abilities to decrease inflationary pressure on our own people than I think the U.S. expects. So if, for example, the tariffs do go in place, it's going to hurt us for sure, but we do have the ability to decrease costs to our people a lot quicker than the U.S. can.
We
already are, by the way. Like, we're already making things a lot cheaper.
This is my opinion, and this isn't like... I think this would be very much consensus, though, if it would happen. I'm reasonably certain if he kept the tariffs on, the 25% ones, I'm pretty certain he would send like Canada into probably the worst economic recession and maybe even a depression that we've had since
If Canada goes through what you're describing, the U.S. will absolutely be hit as well.
No, you won't.
Unfortunately, so as much as I like to make fun of Canada and look how much we get from them and all this, and it would hurt the United States. It would. The reality is the U.S. is a much, much, much bigger economy. It would be devastating to Canada.
Yeah.
This is why I kept saying, and it's very fucking annoying to me, Canada and Mexico and the EU, they need to, and maybe there's political reasons that I don't understand, or maybe what I'm offering is way too complicated. They have, you guys have to like group up on the U.S. because on its own, the U.S. is a huge fucking bully. Like Trump is exercising soft power that he doesn't realize he has because he wants to throw it away apparently at the same time. But like it would be annoying for the United States, and it would be catastrophic for Canada. I think it would be.
Whenever you talk to like, it's literally World War II 2.0. It's you have everyone is on appeasement game again. Like no one wants to actually take like a stance against a bully.
But we also have the ability to decrease these pressures on ourselves. Like I said, we have a serious trade system that's fucking us that we can just remove.
Oh no!
Yeah, but wait. But what I'm saying is that if you do have that system, that money that you're taxing, that's being spent somewhere, and wherever that's being allocated, that's going to hurt.
We don't have. I think our trade barriers are a little bit different than just straight up taxes.
It's not how it works. It's just money. Yeah. It's just, I say math. That like sounds like a meme. But whenever you do a tax on something, so let's say the end result would be, okay, we put the tax onto another country, but then they tariff you and they put it back on you. So essentially, there is only $100 in the pie. Too. Okay, mm-hmm. There is only $100 in the pie. You can never magically like decrease or increase that, right? It's always 100. Okay, so whenever you make a carbon tax, you are putting a cost onto some other part of the industry or economy. Okay, and that will flow into the consumers, or someone will eat it, and that will affect something else. But most of the time, no one eats it, right? Because they can also always pass it on to the consumers, depending on the inelasticity of their products. But most of the time, these places they're very inelastic. So like oil and stuff like that, demand is very inelastic. So any tax you do onto that is going to go onto the consumer. Like for example, America has RINs, which are like refiners. They have to pay. They have to buy green credits, and then they get them from like places like Tesla and stuff like that.
Wait. So regardless of this, wait, Jake, do you understand what I'm saying? That I understand you guys have things where you can alleviate pressure, but that money that is going into those trade barriers or whatever, that has to be hurting, or that has to be helping something.
It's not just like taxes. It's not just like a tax. There are some like actual barriers between what goods that can be traded, between provinces that aren't even taxes, and they go through the U.S. in a lot of instances. Like there are some provinces that have an easier trade route with England, for example, than other provinces. So if these barriers are alleviated and we can directly trade with our other provinces, we might not get hit as hard as we should get hit. I'm not saying we'll fucking make it out sunshine and rainbows.
What kind of barriers are we talking about?
I should probably actually read more into it, but from what I understand, it's very difficult to get some products from provinces into other provinces. Like for example, BC wine doesn't really ever make it down here ever, but we can get like alcohol from South Korea, for example. Like it just doesn't make that much sense. I'm not exactly sure why we have more access to U.S. alcohol than say other provincial alcohol. But if we are able to encourage just cross-province trade, we might be able to deal with some of the negatives of the tariffs. But also, don't forget about the counter tariffs as well. And energy tariffs are a big deal.
No, counter tariffs hurt you. They hurt you more than America, by a factor of 10.
Okay, how does that?
Well, because you're like, oh, don't forget counter tariffs. Like, you're not hurting America by doing that. You are, but like not anywhere near the amount that you're hurting yourself.
Counter tariffs hurt because you make up we make up a massive percentage of your export market, and you make up a smaller percentage. Even though they're a huge trading partner, I'm not trying to play this down because it's insane. But
your export market does Canada make up? Is my question.
Is it like 10% or 12 or 15?
It's like I think it's like, yeah, it's probably around there, yeah.
Because Canada, Mexico, and China all export.
Was the number one it's receiver of American exports.
Well, receiver of American exports, or is our exports, yeah. Canada, Mexico, and China are all about similar. I think it's all around like 550 to 650 billion. All three of those are similar, yeah. Mm-hmm.
You saying Canada and China and Mexico are all about the same?
About the same.
Like Canada is 420 billion, China is 462 billion, and Mexico is 500 billion.
Wait, Mexico?
Canada is 13% of US imports. 13%.
No, I'm asking what percent of exports is Canada?
Exports?
Yeah.
It's way lower, I'm pretty sure.
Wait, exports from which side?
Like what
Oh
percent
no, wait,
is
hold on,
Canada
wait. I'm sorry, wait.
US
You're
exports?
talking about Canadian imports from the United States. I was talking about U.S. exports so I think I'm right. It's like 550.
I want to know.
It's about
Yes, I
550
just
to
want to know.
650 billion to Mexico.
Canada
550.
imports are the highest. So
No,
imports,
exports.
so
U.S. exports.
No,
U.S.
I want to
exports.
know.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I want to know what percent of U.S. exports is Canada. Like Canada is importing a bunch of shit from the U.S., right? Is it the number one importer of U.S. products? Because I'm pretty sure it is.
It might be,
no.
but I think they might be.
Oh yeah, it is.
Yes.
Sorry, yeah.
But
sorry,
they
yes.
might be the
So
number.
really close.
Wait. Stop. They might be the number one
Right.
importer in the same way that I don't need an analogy. They might be the number one importer, but they might be the number one importer at like 14% of all of our exports. Where they're 14%,
17%.
Mexico is 13%, China's 13%,
What if
the UK
we're all
is 2%.
together? Like, what if Mexico and Canada say, "Listen, we're going to tariff.
Yes,
we're going to
that's why I was saying it. That's why I was saying that
No, that's not
Mexico and
happening.
Canada and the EU all need to get together and fuck the US because alone.
We are.
No, they're not. That's not
the plan.
what.
Mexico already already buckled. Like,
because they're losers.
Listen, Mexico can buckle because they are losers. Yeah, but Europe and Canada are definitely going to be the last to buckle. We might buckle, but I don't think we will.
Canada, I think, is already basically buckled on everything. Unfortunately, right?
From my knowledge, no.
I'm pretty sure they alleviated. I think they alleviated everything that the U.S. Mexico Canada trade agreement covered, which was basically
what the U.S. did.
So essentially, what's happening is like
we just agreed. So we're just tit for
they
tatting
follow
right
him.
now.
They follow Trump.
Yeah.
So that's buckling.
No, we're tit for tat. If you do what you're doing, we're doing it right back. So on April 2nd,
but
the problem is
that's buckling.
Yeah, it can't be a tit for tat. Like tariffs have to be in like you do them or you don't, and you promise not to do them. The U.S. just turning the switch on and off over and over again is unhinged. What Trudeau said initially, I think it was Trudeau or it was Ford, but I think it was Trudeau that said we're going to turn these on and we're not turning them off until the U.S. promises to stop, and that hasn't happened. That's what needs to happen.
Ford is very different. I mean, Ford is...
but Ford buckled. Ford was going to do the energy thing, which was base, but then Ford gave up on it.
Yeah, Ford is a fucking conservative, okay, first off. So we don't even know what Ford is doing or what he's trying to do or, I have no idea. I'm not saying Ford isn't all of Canada, and Canada has a very different stance on it. So if Ford buckles, he buckles. Cool. That wasn't even supposed to go in place. That was just like a fucking out of nowhere, like, fuck you, we're charging your electricity.
Yeah, it was awesome. And then it stopped.
It was awesome, but then he just fucking backpedaled. My point being, that's not a win for us putting on a random tariff for no reason and then taking it off. Like, we followed the exact same things that you guys did. At first, we were going to do more.
Hold on. You keep saying following. Yes, that's not good. Following what we're doing is not good. There has to be a thing to stop them from doing it, right?
Yeah, the reason why it's really bad is because America
really have a thing to stop it, though, right?
You do. It has to be it has to be a multilateral tariff regime from the EU, Canada, and Mexico. You're laughing, but that's what it has to be. Otherwise, the U.S. can basically turn your economy on and off whenever they want, and you say, okay, well, we're just doing what they're doing, and it's okay. It's not okay. It's fucked.
There is a very easy way to stop Trump doing what he's doing. If you believe that there is a hurting point. There is. It's you just shut off the oil. Basically 60% of all imported oil to America comes from Canada.
That
is incredibly important.
I understand that, and that's probably important. The only thing that scares me there is how much of that could we replace if we went ultra hard?
No, you couldn't. You literally couldn't. You would. Okay, I've talked to you about this before. The reason why it's incredibly important is because it's a certain type of oil. It's heavy crude oil. It also has extremely high sulfur rates.
We can't get more. What about fucking? Doesn't Venezuela have the most fucking oil in the world or whatever?
Okay, Destiny.
What?
I'm praying to you. Please trust me when I say it. All the Midwestern refiners, they all run. You can't just switch what you're running. They are geared towards a certain type of product, and they have to run that product. You have some leeway, but you can't just we just stop all our imports from X place. We just switch to another one. That's not how it works. The America is what would be great is if they could.
Okay, so Canada is the only country in the world with the special Canadian oil. Is that what you're saying?
No. It's not. They are not the only country. I'm saying that you can't just replace it. And Venezuela has
who else
oil.
Who else exports oil that's similar to the type of oil that Canada has?
Mexico has stuff, but it's around 500,000 barrels a day.
Mm-hmm.
And then Venezuela has around 800,000 to 1 million barrels per day. But it's not all heavy oil.
I'm asking for heavy oil.
Yeah, no. So it's around 600,000 from there. So it's around 1 million, but you need 3 million barrels a day. But then you also need to, like, even if
Infrastructure to
you were
get that oil
even if
in.
you were to even if you were to substitute, you need to transport it. For example, there's heavy oil in the Middle East, right? But that would cost money to transport from like Aframaxes and VLCs or VLCCs. Like all of that stuff would cost lots of money because you're going up the Mississippi all the way to like Midwest refiners that are geared toward to make this oil. And I don't even know if you'd be able to switch it to those things because they have different sulfur levels, even if they're like different what's API like heaviness, right? So it's still maybe API is complexity of like the oil. That's like where it's
Sounds like we might have a very good reason to potentially be afraid of being invaded.
Well, yeah, Alberta. I think there is a high chance that he just goes and annexes Alberta and says it's for the indigenous people. It would literally be Ukraine 2.0 because he'd be like we're we're liberating for you guys from the indigenous people and they've got a bunch of oil. Like it would literally be like the most keynote thing ever.
At that point, I think we're in World War III now.
I mean, Alberta wants to join the US. They're like Texas.
Yeah,
They've been
not
trying to
anymore,
succeed
I don't think.
No, they still do, don't they? I'm pretty sure they're still voting like pro-Trump.
Right?
Wait, there's no shot that the polling right now in Alberta suggests that they would willingly.
They're like massive dick suckers.
I know they're massive conservatives.
Also, I don't even think that's how it works either.
No, they suck
like
the
US,
a lot.
If a Canadian province wants to secede to the US, I don't think they just can if they want to.
Well, careful, because when you say that's not how it works, this is the one consistent ideology that Trump I think has, is that they do want like to go back to the world of like big power or big player politics, basically, where if Russia can take over somebody, they get it. If China can take over somebody, they get it. And then if the US can take over something, then they get it. I think that is how they want the world to work. And unfortunately,
they don't work that way, right? Like this is such a deviation from the US's behavior of the last like 50 years.
Yeah, welcome to everything that the United States is doing right now is a massive deviation from the US behaviors.
I know. It sucks, but I know. I'm just saying, like, well, fuck, if they take us over, they take us over. It is what it is. Like, if the U.S. tomorrow said, fuck it, we're actually going to invade you, like, I hope we don't actually defend ourselves because we will just get slaughtered, right?
Well, I'm not sure how true that is because these are all...
How can we defend the largest border in the world against the most militarized country in the world unless NATO steps in and we're doing World War III?
The question is if we get to that level of unhinged shit, how much of the U.S. military would actually be on board with it? Which nobody...
They are not going to war with Canada. If you know any military person in America, they do like in NATO like stuff with Canada all the time. Like they're like best buddies. Like you're not going to have like convince these. Maybe like
not anymore.
Of them will go to war, but like
don't they want to kick us out of the Five Eyes? They want to kick Canada out of the Five Eyes, right?
I think they just want to leave every joint thing ever. Yeah.
NATO. I don't know.
Trump
we'll see.
Isolationist.
It's the unhingedness. So, yeah. I mean, I have no idea what to expect, I guess, and nobody here does either. But I don't think the markets are pricing in even the current damage that's been done, but let alone the potential future damage if he actually goes through with what's going through. Canada is in trouble, but I think Canada being like catastrophically like.
No, you are.
It will be a catastrophe. It will be there's a reason why the people are folding in the way that they are. Like it will be an unmitigated fucking disaster. I
actually think it's good though because I've said this to my Canadian friends and I hate it, but the reality is Canada needs to implode to get to EU balls. Like we need to realize that if we do not fucking dribble, it's a reality though. If Canada doesn't implode, we aren't going to be like, oh, he's willing to literally destroy economies.
Oh, never mind. Okay, true. I see what you're saying.
You agree that essentially the Canadian oil that needs to go to the U.S. can't just be replaced easily, right? Like we do have some level of a trump card in some ways.
That was my point. What I'm saying is you guys, you have the ability to, if you believe there is a hurting point that Trump will stop on, you have the ability to hit it, and you're not doing anywhere near it. You are pussies. You are not doing anything.
Right now.
You do.
That's
so.
You do because you do. No, wait, stop. The reason why you need to. The reason why you need to is because if all of these tariffs go into effect, the United States it'll suck a little bit for us, but the United States doesn't even know. The United States hasn't had real economic problems for at least 15 years. We don't know what it's like that, even though we think we do. But so the U.S. will suffer whatever the tariffs are, and then if it's already gotten to the point where, the only thing left is the oil, that's the only card you have left to play. Canada's already going to be hurting way more than the U.S., and the U.S. will be like, fuck it, we're doing fine right now anyway.
Why can't we just like shut it off as soon as you do the next like wave of tariffs? April 2nd, you do it, and we do it.
It's not as simple as that. Like you have to get the will to do it.
well, I think we
and
have.
you also, you don't want the
political
United States
will.
to think that they can set the rules like that. Like, okay, well, we'll just follow your lead on raping us. Like, it can't be that way.
Well, why would we wait?
Also, when you're thinking about tariffs,
right now, Trump
wrong.
is saying, you know, hey, we might do these tariffs or we might not. April 2nd, get ready. And you're saying,
No,
okay, well,
right
we should
now
just
they're
pull out
saying
our
they
gun
will
right
do the
now.
tariffs.
We should pull out our gun right now.
They are 100% happening.
Yeah.
Everything out of the admin
If we're
is
saying, if we have one bullet in the chamber, right? We have one bullet, and we're like, hey, this is our only bullet.
You have loads of bullets.
Relax. I'm just saying if. Okay, let's say if this is our fucking gun. This is the big one, right? This is the one we have. Are you saying we should fucking shoot the gun right now, right at the beginning of the war, or should we wait until we know we're fucked? And you're saying we should just do it now.
Well, no, that's the appeasement. That's appeasement. That's the idea, right? It's like, oh, because it's a slippery slope, we shouldn't go down to this X point because, oh, that would be too far, right? That's literally
no, but it's an escalation. We don't want to escalate if we don't need to 100%.
Okay, this is what I've been trying to say for the last 10 minutes.
No?
You are thinking on tariffs in the wrong way, okay? They are not first order effects. They are massive implications to your economy decades in the future. And why I said depression is because every single company in the US is looking at your fucking country and going, why the hell would we expand to your country, even if there is like prices going up because inflation and stuff like that, when our whole model is affected by a potentially lunatic in office, okay?
Actually, yeah, I'm not even thinking, I'm not even considering the other companies in the world for people that invest in Canada, because the United States isn't just competing for the rest of the world. We think of China and everything else, but if you guys start getting hit with massive tariffs, not only are Canadian companies going to be affected, your FDI is going to be affected too, because other countries are going to be like, why would I invest and build in fucking Canada when I don't have access to U.S. markets? I'm just going to go south and build in the United States.
We might also look at Canada. We might, well, if it also appears like the U.S. might be going into a dictatorship, it might be the only way to potentially invest in the U.S. in the future when it's not a fucking dictatorship.
That's like saying, oh, if Nazi Germany's coming up, we're just going to be like, yeah, okay, guys. Right,
listen,
we need to find
if
some way
Nazi
to work with
Germany
these people.
is coming up right now, you wouldn't invest in Nazi Germany. You might invest in France, though.
I don't know if you would want to invest in France right before World War II.
I know. Okay, listen, I'm not saying that, but you know what I mean. Why would you rush? Why would you? Okay, wait.
Blown up, right?
Why would you rush into investing in Nazi Germany right before the war when you're not exactly sure what's about to happen? You know, like dictatorship is rising, and there's clearly like.
Sure. Hold on. So it's not really okay. Wait. This line of thought is not the relevant line of thought. The relevant line of thought is right now Donald Trump is under the impression that he can turn on and off the world economy switch when it comes to U.S. imports and exports markets on a whim. And there needs to be some kind of collective action that says, hey, you can't do this. And if you do it, it's going to hurt you, because this is insane to be doing this on and off on a whim. And if you say, well, we'll wait to see what you do and then we'll follow your action, what you're telling the United States, like, let's say, for instance, some guy was going to break into your house. You know there's a guy who's going to break into your house and murder you. Do you want him to do it on his timetable, or do you want him to do it on your timetable?
Okay,
right?
How about we, instead of that, we say there's a guy on my front lawn. He looks like he might break into my house.
Yeah.
And he's saying he might break into my house. And I've got a gun and I'm looking at him. I'm like, okay, like you break into my house, I'm fucking shooting you, right?
No, you wouldn't say that. No, stop. You wouldn't do that. You wouldn't do that. You'd shoot him in the yard, right?
No, maybe not. It depends. Does he have a gun too and he's about to shoot me?
No. Yes. Maybe I would he says, I'm coming into your house to kill you with a shotgun, and you've got a rifle in your window. Are you going to wait for him to come into your home?
I'm waiting for him to open the fucking door and then I'm shooting him.
Why?
Yeah, I'm not shooting him.
Shoot him in the yard.
As soon as that door cracks open, he's getting shot.
No. You know what you need to do? You know what you need to do is you need to have a sign in the yard that says trespassers will be shot. And right now Canada is saying, we're not going to shoot a trespasser. We're going to wait till you come to the house. And so Trump's like, okay, well, I'll flirt on the balcony.
We're shooting you. That's what we're saying. And he's saying, okay, well, we're going to fucking trespass. But we haven't gotten to that point yet.
Well, I mean, if you want, we can literally just look at the behavior. We are at that point, and Trump feels like he can turn tariffs on and off on a whim. Like on April 2nd, those tariffs are coming.
Yes, I agree with that.
Okay. They shouldn't be. Trump should feel the pain now for it. Why does everybody get to wait? And not only can Trump feel the pain, but like U.S. companies are bracing for it. They're already getting ready for it. And you know what? There was one question. I didn't hear anybody talk about this much. I actually thought it was a little bit revealing. There was a question that Trudeau got that I feel like he could have been nailed on way more. But it was somebody in the media asked him, why haven't you done anything to prepare Canadians for these tariffs? Why don't you have stimulus checks ready to go or something? And he didn't have an answer at all for that.
Is my question.
What?
What if we did have something to protect Canadians?
But you aren't. You're not doing anything. You're just like waiting there, hoping to God that it doesn't happen.
We do, though. We do have protections. We have the ability to.
All you have is inflation. Okay. That's all you can do. If you print money from the central bank and buy bonds, you're inflation. That's all you're going to do. Is you're going to send yourself into hyperinflation.
You guys are the ones that only have inflation in some ways.
At the end of the day, you can't get over the reality that the American economy is like 15 times or something the GDP, I think, of the Canadian economy, and it's just the balance there is just.
I think
it's going to be brutal.
I think we're gonna have to see. I don't. By the way, I'm not saying
Also, the way you're
Canada's going to come
approaching
out fine.
tariffs
By the
is,
way,
like,
I
the
don't
wrong
think
way.
that's the
It
case.
shouldn't be-
Wait, let him finish. Let
shouldn't-
Jake finish. Wait. Let Jeff finish. Jeez. Go.
Go. Sorry.
I was going to say, I don't think Canada is going to be fine if we go through tariffs, but I also don't think it makes sense to immediately escalate, unless especially if we're somewhat caught off guard by the, actual implementation of those tariffs. So like, for example, if we were like not sure if he was actually going to go through it from the beginning, he's posturing. It's like, we really weren't sure. I remember not being sure if they were actually going to do it or not. Then when they went in, I think now is the time we talk to our allies and we really get our shit together. I'm sure they already did, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see a more connected response from at least Europe and Canada from the next wave. So, I mean, we'll have to see. I'm not exactly sure, but...
Wait, see what after the next wave? Wait, what?
We're going to have to see when they actually go in, but...
What do you wait? See
right
what?
Now, I don't think we need to pre-react until we actually see if the second waves go through or not. We think they will, but we don't need to pre-react, in my opinion.
I mean, like, okay. I don't think... I'm not trying to borrow a Metaloid talking about, but I don't know if you understand how absolutely fucking end of the world devastating this is to the Canadian economy. Like, this is not going to be a gentle.
I'm very much aware
okay.
of what exactly is going to happen in our Canadian economy.
Okay, it's yes.
But do you know the implications of the Canadian economy here more than me?
I know that there's no shot.
There's no
pressure. There's no pressure valve
like,
that you could do that would even have a remote impact on how catastrophic this will be to the Canadian economy.
Also, everything you do is going to make him make him raise the stakes. So if you fight back at all, and also, and that's not my point saying you shouldn't fight back. The point is that any way you believe that, we can hit back on tit for tat, just going to make him go higher. And eventually, like, that's how trade wars work. And for a country that's in the worst position, you are... And you're in the neighbor, and you're landlocked by like 80% of the country, and basically 90% of all your economy is like geared towards like America existing. Like,
and Trump is already talking about taking land from Greenland, and you're going to be surrounded on all three sides. It's going to be a three-front war.
What do you want us to do, man? I don't get it. You want us to
talk to Europe right now and say right
we
now
are.
These tariffs?
I'm pretty sure we are.
Your energy is going to be fucked.
Hey,
Fuck
by the way,
USA.
You know what? Fuck you guys. You guys are going to be part of the Commonwealth soon. So why do we even give a shit?
I don't even know if Trump knows what the Commonwealth is. I don't think Trump even knows what that means. He might sign it on accident. Who the fuck knows?
Soon you guys are going to be fucking the queen. Well, I guess the king is going to be on your money soon, okay? So get ready.
Trump is on top, right? Trump is a stage plant. He was planted by us from the beginning.
Yeah, fuck you guys. You guys have never been closer to us than ever before, Commonwealth.
I just thought he was a Russian stooge. He's actually a bong.
Why do you think Trump wants us so badly? It's because he needs us. He needs us. Why do you think he wants Greenland so badly? It's because he needs it. Why do you think he wants
Canada was the sacrifice to bring America back into the Commonwealth.
He needs it. Yeah, we're going to fucking absolutely have the U.S. join the Commonwealth, and we're going to be so much closer. It's going to be amazing. We're going to have a new Commonwealth fucking free trade agreement with Britain, Canada, and the U.S. Not Mexico, though. Because I don't know why, but they're not a part of the Commonwealth, right? I didn't... Yeah, the Queen is rest in peace, you know? She's still in her 20s, so...
I think you need to change the way you approach things heuristically. Because you have an approach where you kind of just like believe tertiary points and they kind of build into a bigger narrative. When you need to build a better like heuristic approach to like actually analyzing things from a more base level to create like a basic like structural foundation that is strong, and then build up from there, rather than like, because a lot of people do this nowadays where they see like Twitter posts and stuff like that and they like, I don't know, like consumer, I don't know what you like delinquency to go to max point.
This is on Twitter.
Well, I mean, it can be Twitter, Substack. I've led.
Yeah, no, I haven't read anything actually. All of this is more observations. So if you have,
I do not. Well, the observations is from reading.
No, sorry. What I'm saying is I haven't read someone else's blog and then like repeated those talking points. I've come to these conclusions by looking into all these different numbers. So if you have something that I need to read or should read, I actually will. So if that's why I asked you to share that those things that you were talking about earlier, so I can actually look at them and read them. So I appreciate your suggestion. If you have
I'm not trying to do a gotcha here. I'm just saying.
No, I'm not saying you did. I'm not saying you did. I'm saying if there's something you think I should be reading or looking into deeper, or have something I should be looking into, then please send it to me and I actually will read it.
That's not. I don't want to be mean, but it's like
Okay.
you have to fix the way you approach things. You like, for example, someone might be racist because they see a bunch of things that like build this kind of narrative in their head, right? Proving them wrong on that one point doesn't change how they heuristically approach everything, right? If you approach stuff heuristically, you're more likely to be right because you have a better foundation for how you're coming at things, right? Whereas if you find that your approach, like every new thing that happens, you're finding that there's a lot of things that prove you wrong. You're better off having a more focused like data. I don't know, like whatever you want to do, like your heuristic
Where
approach
do you
to be able to
believe
have a
my
better.
data understanding was way off, and I drew a very incorrect conclusion?
So
That I
you
can
brought up like
understand.
a bunch of things like the data centers getting cancelled. Like
Yes,
all of this is based on like future growth that isn't there. Like I had to like
it
I
is
don't know,
future growth
educate you,
though.
quote unquote. No,
It's
I know,
future
but there
growth.
was a lot of like misunderstandings building this. Like you were right. Like it's a lot of people do this. This is what populism is. Is you build like on a single true thing, right? And then you
Mm.
extrapolate that out and like use people's like emotions or like racism and stuff to build it on top of, right? But the thing that's built on top of that isn't actually good or based on anything good. It's just you're using some true thing to build other things on top of,
Do you
right?
know why I think this so strongly? Like why I have such a
Uh,
strong belief that we're in a
I could
bubble?
say what I truly believe. I think that none of what we've talked about here is going to change your mind, and you're going to have the exact same opinions.
No.
And if I would say if you would have
Okay.
the conversation in 3 months, you would say the exact same things, and I could go through the
Well,
same stuff
in three
again.
months, we'll probably know if I'm right or wrong. And I hope we do revisit this conversation when we have more context, especially after April 2nd. I would love to, by the way. And I might be very wrong, but to really know if I'm wrong, we need to go through this bubble, right?
If it is a bubble, yeah.
It is. It is. It's the largest bubble of all time, in my opinion.
Well,
But
relative
we have.
wise, it's actually extremely small. But yeah, okay.
What do you mean by that?
Well, whenever you're talking about nominal numbers, like inflation goes up, which means more money, like numbers go up over time. So of course it's going to
Hmm.
be the biggest quote unquote bubble. But if you look at like, for example, 2020, that was way bigger than it is now. If you go back to '09, relative wise, so inflation adjusted jealous, it was much, much, much bigger. Because the
Okay.
financial market was way bigger. '09 was humongous. The amount of money that was in that was like, compared to
Do
now,
you think
relative
we've
wise,
seen any indicators that there might be a much bigger issue already on amongst us? Does that make sense?
like AI.
No, just like in general, like have we seen any more cracks in terms of economic stability that are already among us?
In like
Like stuff we
let's
can
see.
visualize in the last 2 years, within the last 1 year.
Oh,
Has
I
there
mean, if
been
you're asking
anything?
me, so I throughout this conversation have said that there are many things that are showing cracks in, like consumer sentiment is bad. It does
Mhm.
affect consumption, right? So if consumer sentiment does, like, if people think the world's ending, they will change what they are consuming depending on the elasticity. So they might not buy like a new iPhone, right? And they might like
Yeah.
save that money instead. But we haven't seen savings rates go up to like a decent degree, which would suggest stocks, being less owned, right?
Yeah.
We also pretty much all spending is good. Like we see, recreational spending is going up. All those companies are doing really well. I mean, but obviously after this it will be something different. But the last 2 years, no, the last 2 years the economy has been great, except for tech sector and finance sector.
Yes.
All the high paying sectors are going down, but that's mostly because
I wouldn't even
That's
say
the
that means they're
bubble, by
not
the way.
doing great. It's just correcting, right? Like it was
Yeah.
probably
yeah,
there was
I have a
probably a lot
disagreement
of.
with you on this a
Oh,
bit,
you
but
disagree? You don't think there was overhiring after COVID or any of that
I
shit?
so you were doing you're like taking the true point, which is there was overhiring, and then you're like extrapolating it into like the knock-on effects. But I think you're wrong on those. There was overhiring, but it wasn't like there was a lot of bloat. Don't get me wrong, but most of the time when you're doing that, it's not like pure like 100%. And obviously, I know you're saying that. Actually, I'll just move off that. The idea is that the knock-on effects was past 2022 there was a margin expansion, all tech companies, and that led to firing because they had to find margin in some way, right? Because there was stock prices going.
Okay. All right. Well, is that
Any
it?
hiring increase at all, right? At all.
Oh.
There was no hiring increase, and
Just
that's
what the fuck's
very
with
odd.
Discord?
Oh, wait, did I cut out?
Yep.
You cut out.
But that's
Oh,
okay. We
okay.
got it.
What did
We
I say
figured it
last?
out.
We got it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they fired people, but they needed margins, liquidity, and then Tesla.
No. But like the sales went up like past 2022, and there was no hiring. That's very odd for tech sector. So it shows there is this like there is an actual structural change in the like pipeline of like college graduates graduating from tech and then going into the sector and being hired and going up through them but unexperienced and stuff like that. What we're
Can I
seeing
ask
instead
you?
is college graduates not finding tech jobs, like
Mm.
unemployment along tech tech graduates has been climbing every year, and that is actually one of the biggest.
Climbing from what? From 1.9% to 2.4%?
No. Like the levels I saw was like 30 to 40% of all like graduates coming out with, and when you approach this, Tiny, you're basically saying that unemployment overall is low, so this data is wrong. You
30
right
to 40% of what, like, comp sci software engineer people, graduates, are not finding work in technology?
Yeah, there was
recession to me.
There was a web some fucking article did a paper on that.
Fuck the article. Show me the BLS. They track this shit, don't they?
Yeah, but yeah, you can see it in the BLS, but the thing that you extrapolate is, because percent number isn't like 5% to like 10%, there is no problem. These things like structural changes, like directional changes. So if unemployment is going down, right, in all categories, anyone saying anything is bad is dumb. They're retards, right? But if you have a structural change from like a bottom to then going up, right, and you start like going upwards, that usually shows a structural change, right? And there is unemployment going up, and I've posted this chart to you, and you're like, oh yeah, but the actual absolute number is really low compared to like 2009. But where that unemployment coming from is important, right? And most of it's coming from graduates, like BA holders, so people who are very high intelligence, right? They aren't finding like jobs in the field or jobs at all. But most of the time, it's just in the field. They can get a job, right? Like you can get a teacher job and stuff like that.
By the way, can I ask you a question?
Show me the numbers later. Okay, sorry. Who? Oh yeah.
Did you watch the most recent GTC like event that Nvidia did right before the rate cut announcement?
Yeah.
What did you think about it?
I think it was. There's a lot of points in there. I'm not sure what you want me to say.
There's no point. I'm just asking you, like, what do you think about it? What was your thoughts?
It was basically just like Nvidia coming along, telling everyone in the industry that already, keeps up the industry, everything they already know. Like, for example, the Blackwell architecture, how good it is, how much better it is, and everything else. How good NVLink is, and their networking, like, trouncing everyone else's relative right now, which basically is what's so good about
everything is better, right? You would say that. Yeah. And also, did you see Blue?
Blue?
Yeah, his little robot guy.
Oh yeah.
And did you see self-driving? Like GM and self-driving?
No, I didn't. I don't remember seeing that. Probably did though. I mean, they talk about everything all the time.
I guess what I thought was very interesting was we saw like Blackwell is so much better. It's just going to do everything better, right? We saw robots being announced. Blue, very cool. Well, robots are going to be so important next in the future. And also we saw self-driving really hyped. And I know that this is exactly what Tesla does when they get real desperate. And the stock did not react to this shit in any way.
Nvidia is actually competing with Tesla. Nvidia's competing
I'm
with
just
Tesla.
saying we had the most hype fluff fucking event I've ever seen, and the stock price went down. I know.
Well, yeah, but you should never expect those companies to go up, or the stocks could go up. Like that's.
I know, but what I'm saying is we got the best news we possibly could, and the stock did not react.
No, it's not news. It's not news. You don't know this because you don't follow the markets. Everyone already knew.
I've been watching every single one of these press releases, and to me it gets desperate and desperate and more desperate and more desperate, and it does not seem to matter. That's what I think.
If you go back to every GTC in the past, they've always been. Last year, GTC, sell the news. 2022, GTC, sell the news. It was every single time.
Why do you think that is?
Because it's not news. It's just it's literally just him doing a fluff piece to like the people, and then telling a new.
He's like you
guys have 5 minutes. You got till 6 o'clock.
But I'm done. By the way, I appreciate you, Metal. I actually do appreciate the engagement. If you think I should read up on something, I'd love to, and I would love to re-engage you in maybe a month. Okay, so if you think I'm very much out of my depth in somewhere, tell me, and I'll research more heavily in that area. Okay.
All right, it's your heuristic approach, not your individual.
I get that,
knowledge.
It's everything, but I would love to hear like a specific thing that was really bad that I should read up on, and I will. So I would appreciate that. Okay.
Okay.
Is that fair? And we can talk in a month.
Just say yes. Yes, that's fair. Yes, that's fair.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. I do. So just thank you. Peace. Thanks, Destiny. By the way.
Yeah, I love you. Have fun. Be careful.
See you guys. Bye.
Yeah.